So the overview of the Parsha, as we do every week before laning in Eretz Hashem, will be back in Shul, saying this again with the Sefer Torah in front of us about to be read from. But this week we have a double Parsha as well as a Rosh Chodesh. We have the Mafter and Haftarah. We have Rosh Chodesh, which falls out now on Friday and on Shabbos. But in the two Parshas together, Tzaria and Metzorah, Parshas that are very often together, the first aliyah over there discusses the laws of purity and impurity, Toma v'Tahara, as they pertain to childbirth. Right? Isha kisazriya v'yolda zachar, and a woman gives birth and she has a son. And the basic laws of what one does after they give birth to become tahar, to become pure again, halachos that are mostly relevant during the times of the Beis Hamikdash. Followed immediately by what's going to be the gist of almost the rest of the parasha. Very detailed laws of tzaras, involving the diagnosis of a kain, of the white spots that we know come from Lashon Hara, a spiritual plague that manifested itself in a physical way. And it involves the diagnosis of the Kohen, an expert Kohen, and the possible, nowadays, we're very familiar with this term, quarantine, as well as the laws of tzaras as opposed to healthy skin and infection, so as not to confuse the two, not to think that some sort of leprosy is tzaras. One needed to be an expert. And the second and the third aliyahs discuss those laws at length, the various different times of tzaras that relates to burns, when this is on a bald patch and a dull white spot in the presence of a blemish. On clothing is discussed as well. And it takes a great expertise to discern and differentiate between the different shades of white that are tzaras. Some are good, some are tahar, and some are not, some are impure. An error in the perception of the white-like shell of an egg as opposed to the color of the thin white membrane that is under the shell before the egg, the white of the egg, the membrane that's there when it's still raw. There's a thin membrane there. That thing you peel off under when you peel off a hard-boiled egg, what's between the edible part of the egg and the shell of the egg, there's a thin thing. Sometimes it comes off with the egg, sometimes it stays within the shell, depending on how long you cooked it for, actually. That's the difference in color. If you study the two, that's the difference in color between the tahar and tameh, between pure and not pure. And only certain times of the day, and only in sunlight, is one permitted to examine that nega, to examine that spot, that affliction, and be able to tell whether or not it's the tahar one or the tameh one, what its status is, depending on the effects of the light and the shadows and whatever. It's a great expertise. Very similar to what the very end of the parasha, and perhaps this is why the two of them are put together, some explain, is we talk about the halachos of nida, of the menstrual cycle, and over there as well, there are staining and blood spots that one needs to be an expert to be able to tell the difference between tahar and not tahar, what would make one a nida and would not make one a nida. And it's quite amazing. I've trained in it extensively. It's an amazing thing to see how the accuracy that could be established by testing a group of expertly trained, rabbis in different parts of the world who studied under different teachers and reached the exact same determinations that to the untrained eye you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And what's the difference of these two? But those that are trained will all say, well, that one goes to the left, and that one's on the right, and that one's smack in the middle, and it lines up. It's fascinating. In the fourth aliyah, we have the purification process. So the guy became a Metzorah, or the house, or whatever it is, and there's a whole process that it goes to. You have 2 kosher birds, a piece of cedar, some crimson wool, a hyssop branch, fresh spring water, a clay bowl, a kohen, a mikvah, waiting 7 days, a full-body haircut, a carbon, and a mincha offering, and it's all detailed there. In the fifth aliyah, we have the problem. That was a lot of detail. What happens when the person is poor? What does he do? He can't afford such an extensive procedure with so many different materials, full animal, birds, plus all the rest of that stuff, and that procedure is discussed in the fifth aliyah. In the sixth and seventh aliyah, we have the laws that deal with, as I mentioned, First, we deal with actually the blemishes that appear on a house, a tzaras that appears on a house. The nega could be on the house, and what happens. But then we turn our attention to bodily discharges. Like I mentioned, we have the female discharges, menstruation, nida, taras hamishpacha, the laws of family purity, one of the most essential parts of our Yiddishkeit, of a Jewish family, is all found here in the verses in the Psukim, in the 15th Perek, 19 to 26, as well as the laws of male discharges, seminal discharges, and other sorts are all described over here. The Zav, the Zava, Katana, Gedola are all described here towards the end of the Parsha. Some things to look out for as we read this Parsha. We have here quarantine. We have here social distancing. But the Teshev, the pasuk will talk about if you look through the Parsha, going on pause from society. They're all in the Parsha. Where's the masks? What happened to the masks? It should be here as well. Take a look, and we'll discuss that in Mitzvah Hashem in the drasha.